3 kings, 3 generations, 1 dynasty that changed the fate of Calradia. It began with a pirate, a man who hunted the raiders that destroyed his family. It continued with a conqueror, a king who crushed kingdoms and built the greatest army the North had ever seen. And it now rests on the shoulders of a reckless young ruler, a king who has already lost an eye in battle and may soon lose everything else. This is the story of the Gnarling Dynasty, a saga of sea battles, empire wars, betrayal, and survival. A story where the Nords rose from near extinction and where the world of Calradia began to tremble beneath their axes. And before we begin, you need to understand the world. To the north, frozen lands and stormy seas, the homeland of the Nords. To the west, the powerful kingdom of Vlandia. To the south, the wealthy desert empire of the Asurai. To the east, the deadly horse archers of the Khuzaits. And across the center of the continent, the fractured remains of the Calradian Empire. It is a world of constant war. And in this world, a single family would rise to power. The Rise of Stormblood, Episode 1, The Sea Remembers. The sea around Valvik does not forget. It remembers every hull that has cut across its skin, every scream swallowed beneath its waves, every king who believed he ruled it. Valvik, the island capital of the Nords, rises from the water like a stone clenched in a giant's fist. Wind claws at its walls day and night. Salt whitens its towers. Gulls circle above as if waiting for something to die. Long before the banners of House Gnarling flew from its battlements, foreign colors stained those stones. And before there was a king named Yangvold, there was only a blade in the dark. Yangvold, the necessary shadow. In his youth, Yangvold Gnarling did not dream of crowns. He dreamed of silence. He learned early that power was not seized in open halls but shaped in quiet corners. While other boys wrestled in muddy yards, Yangvold studied people. Their pauses, their lies, their weaknesses. He saw how pride blinded jarls, how greed hollowed loyalty, how fear could bend a strong man more effectively than steel. The old Nord king saw this too. When rebellion flickered among the clans, it was Yangvold who walked alone into snowbound forests to end it. When conspirators plotted by torchlight, they were found at dawn with frost stiffening their blood. When foreign agents whispered promises of alliance with Vlandia, they disappeared before their words took root. Yangvold did what needed doing. He did not enjoy it, but he did not hesitate. In private moments, when no one watched, he would wash blood from his hands and stare at his reflection in dark water. If I must be a monster so the realm may sleep, he once thought, then let the gods judge me later. He never imagined they would judge him as king. The fall of the island. The Nordic collapse came not with thunder, but erosion. Thornderlag, under Clan Throsniring, still claimed primacy. Jarls argued over trade routes, border disputes, and ancient grudges. Pride fractured unity. The sea trade slowed. Raids diminished. Strength turned inward instead of outward. And Vlandia watched. Vlandian knights did not fear northern winds. They wore steel heavier than pride and carried banners bright enough to challenge any storm. When their fleet crossed into Nordic waters, they did so not as raiders, but as conquerors. Valvik fell. The island city, sacred, fortified, unconquered for generations, bowed to foreign rule. A Vlandian governor took residence in its great hall. Vlandian soldiers walked its docks. Vlandian law echoed in Nordic streets. Yangvold stood upon a distant cliff and watched smoke rise from the island. He did not rage. He calculated. They believe the sea belongs to them now, he thought. They have mistaken possession for mastery. Gretus Jord, the fog of reckoning. Gretus Jord was the key. 500 Vlandian sailors gathered there under Morcon of Clan de Merrick. Their fleet anchored confidently within the narrow fjord. They prepared to depart at dawn, supplies loaded, discipline relaxed. They believed the north broken. That morning the fog came heavy. It rolled from the sea in thick waves, swallowing mast and sail alike. Within that living shroud, longships moved. Yangvold stood at the prow of the lead vessel, face streaked with salt, eyes unblinking. Around him, Nord warriors gripped axes and shields in silence. He felt no triumph, only inevitability. The first ram splintered a Vlandian hull before a warning could be shouted. Hooks flew, timber cracked, men slipped on blood-slicked decks. Arrows were loosed at such close range they struck before fear fully formed. The fjord became a slaughterhouse. Morkan died beneath 3 axe blows. His banner sank into crimson water. By sunrise, 500 Vlandians were dead. Not one swam to shore. Yangvold watched the tide carry them out and felt something unexpected. Not satisfaction, but clarity. This is what a king must be, he realized. Not loud, not proud, decisive. Gredisjord rose in rebellion before the day ended. The Vlandian governor was dragged into the streets and executed. Word spread like wildfire. Valvik would not remain foreign for long. The crown by consent. The siege of Valvik was not reckless. Yangvold blockaded its supply lines, starved it slowly, infiltrated its docks under cover of darkness. He broke morale before breaking walls. When Vlandian banners finally fell from its towers, there was no dramatic final charge, only the quiet collapse of inevitability. The Jarls gathered. They had argued for decades. This time they did not. One by one they cast their votes. Yangvold Narling became king. He did not kneel in gratitude. He did not boast. He simply accepted the weight. If unity requires fear, he thought as the crown touched his brow, then I will be feared. A king of stability. Yangvold's reign was not a storm of conquest. It was reinforcement. Fleets rebuilt. Harbors fortified. Grain stores expanded. Trade secured. Clans reconciled or removed. He honored the old gods, the sea above all. Offerings were cast into deep waters. Oaths were sworn upon salt and storm. He aged quietly. When he stood atop Valvik's cliffs in his final days, cloak snapping in relentless wind, he did not think of his victories. He thought of his sons, of Border, the quiet one, the watcher. He sees the world differently, Yangvold once told himself. Colder, sharper. The sea below churned endlessly. Yangvold closed his eyes, and the wind carried him away. If you enjoy the story so far, make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Now let's get back to the story. Border, the architect of war. Border Narling inherited not chaos, but order. And he saw its weaknesses immediately. Where his father had sought stability, Border saw vulnerability. Stability could breed complacency. Peace could soften warriors. Enemies who feared Yangvold might test his air. From youth, Border had studied logistics as others studied combat. He memorized coastlines, supply chains, recruitment cycles. He counted arrows before counting men. War, to him, was mathematics. When scattered sturgeon remnants fled near Revel, Border did not send generals. He went himself. He tracked them through marsh and frost, anticipating desperation, cutting off escape routes before they understood they were trapped. When he struck, it was absolute. No survivors. As he wiped his blade clean, he felt no exhilaration. Mercy breeds rebellion, he thought. Fear breeds obedience. Vlandia panicked. They declared war. Ostican, the lesson. Vlandian armies gathered along northern borders, preparing to meet a traditional invasion. Border did not meet them. He sailed south. Ostican, a coastal jewel, believed itself safe. Its reserve forces were seasoned veterans, confident behind walls. They never saw the longships until it was too late. The assault was swift and disciplined. Border moved with calculated brutality, striking command structures first, collapsing coordination, sowing panic deliberately. Many good Vlandian soldiers died waiting for reinforcements that would never arrive in time. The devastation was so complete that Vlandia sued for peace almost immediately. Border accepted, not out of mercy, but because the lesson had been delivered. Orticia, breaking the Empire's pride, the Western Empire underestimated him. Orticia stood proud, defended by legions who believed northern warriors unsophisticated. For 3 months, Border dismantled that belief. He cut supply lines, launched night raids, denied sleep, denied certainty, denied hope. 200 Nords fell. 3,000 Imperials did not rise again. When Orticia surrendered, it did so not because walls fell, but because morale did. The Empire paid heavily for peace, and Border began to understand something dangerous. I can reshape this world. The Forest War. Battania struck next. Their archers darkened skies above. Car-Banseth. Nord shields splintered under relentless precision. Good men, veterans of Gretus Jord and Ostican, died in forests that did not echo with sea wind. Border felt anger then, not wild rage, cold fury. If this is their strength, he thought as arrows thudded into earth around him, then I will take it from them. 5 years of relentless war followed. Ambush answered with eradication. Forest paths mapped. Supply routes severed. Clan leaders eliminated one by one. Battania ceased to exist as a kingdom. Its archers did not. Border absorbed them. And then he did something no Nord king had done before. He created an army loyal not to tradition, not to clan, but to him. Nord infantry as an unbreakable core. Battanian archers as lethal precision. Vlandian cavalry as unstoppable force. It was an army forged from conquered excellence. It was his, and the young Nord king, once supportive, began to watch him with unease. He does not conquer for defense anymore, the young king thought. He conquers because he can. The red shore of Oman. The Khazaits met him near Oman. 600 Nords marched. Half veterans, half fresh volunteers from Orticia. 900 Khazate horsemen thundered across open ground, led by King Magnus. Arrows fell like relentless rain. The inexperienced died first. Border held his reserves until the exact moment fatigue cracked Khazate momentum. Then he struck with disciplined fury. When the dust cleared, only 200 Nords remained standing. 400 lay dead. Magnus stood in chains. He did not kneel. He did not beg. He spoke of endless step and inevitable vengeance. Border listened. Then, before both armies, he executed him. In that moment, something irreversible happened. Hatred between sea and steppe became generational. The sea grows restless. Argeron fell soon after. Castles followed. The Khazate realm fractured. But in Valvik, whispers grew. Border had surpassed his father's legacy. Yet he no longer sought merely to protect the north. He sought to dominate it. Standing upon the same cliffs where Yangvald once watched the sea, Border felt the wind tear at his cloak. The world respects strength, he thought, and I will give it nothing else. Far below, waves crashed endlessly against stone. The sea remembers, and it waits. Border Gnarling did not fall in battle. He outlived them all. Years passed, and the campaigns did not cease. They only changed shape. Age stiffened his joints, but sharpened his suspicion. The battlefield became less a place of glory and more a board of pieces. He no longer rode at the front of shield walls. He commanded from behind maps and sealed letters. Where once he conquered with steel, he now conquered with silence. The southern deserts of the Asurai tempted him, not for honor, not for revenge, for leverage. Quias fell not to siege engines, but to whispers. Borders agents moved through markets disguised as traders. Gold passed quietly between hands. Assassinations were precise and deniable. Gates opened on windless nights. Fires broke out in armories. Loyal commanders died of sudden illness. By the time Nord banners appeared on the horizon, the city was already hollowed from within. 2 western Asurai castles followed, not through open war, but internal sabotage. Water stores poisoned, garrisons divided, leaders eliminated in their sleep. Border had mastered something darker than conquest. He had mastered destabilization. The clans began to murmur. They still feared him. Many believed him chosen by the old gods. Some whispered he was more than mortal, that no man could command such relentless victory without divine favor. But they also remembered when Jarls held authority within their own lands. Border centralized everything: taxes, armies, authority. Clans that once ruled now obeyed. The old ways thinned, and fear replaced loyalty, and son unworthy. Vanra Narling grew in this shadow. Wine-stained halls, laughter, women, music. He loved pleasure openly. He loved admiration. He loved being the son of Border. He did not love discipline. Border watched him with growing contempt. "He is soft," he told his war council. A jester born in a king's hall. Vanra avoided war councils, avoided campaign tents, avoided responsibility. He carried a name heavy with legend and treated it lightly, beer in hand, smile wide, eyes distracted. Border's pride would not allow doubt. "My father carved an empire," he once thought bitterly while observing Vanra from a distance. "And I perfected it. It will not fall to a boy with perfume on his hands." He never looked deeper. He never asked why Vanra listened more than he spoke. He never questioned whether indulgence could be camouflage. Pride does not examine. It judges. Cracks in the empire. The Western Empire had grown strong again in the south. Their legions reorganized. Their treasury replenished. Borders tested. Raids increased near Orticia. Rebellions flickered in former Batanian forests. Asurai resistance brewed in desert strongholds. Khazate warbands reformed under new khans. The Nordic Empire, vast and feared, was stretched thin. Border answered pressure with harsher control. Executions increased. Dissent vanished. Taxes rose. The clans bowed, but with clenched teeth. The young Jarls, who had never known a Nord king before Border, began to wonder what rule without fear might look like. And for the first time in decades, Border felt tired. Not weak, not afraid, but tired. He mountain path came without announcement. One morning, Border summoned the Jarls to Valvik. The hall was silent as he stood before them. Older now, beard streaked with gray, shoulders still broad but no longer invincible. "I have walked the warrior's path," he said. "I have conquered sea, forest, steppe, and desert. I have strengthened the north beyond any king before me." His gaze swept across them, daring contradiction. None spoke. "I will now walk the path of the gods." Murmurs rippled through the hall. He declared his abdication, not for weakness, for transcendence. He would retreat into the northern mountains, to live as an ascetic of the old ways, a Nordic monk, a seeker of divine understanding, to shed crown and command and seek something beyond war. Some believed it was enlightenment. Others believed it was control, one final act of dominance. To leave on his own terms. Vanra stood beside him that day, wide-eyed, sober for once. Border did not embrace him, did not offer wisdom. did not offer warning. "You will rule," he said flatly. "Do not shame the blood." He saw only weakness, only softness, only failure waiting to happen. Pride blinded him completely, and so he left, without looking back. The uncertain crown. Vanra Narling was crowned beneath banners that still smelled of battle. The Jarls knelt. They said nothing. House Narling had earned silence through decades of victory. But silence is not loyalty. The new king smiled too easily, held his goblet too comfortably. Whispers began before the feast ended. The empire border forged stood vast, but unstable. Enemies circled, clans simmered, borders strained, and at its center stood a young king with women in his bed and uncertainty in his eyes. Far in the northern mountains, Border Narling climbed alone into mist and stone, seeking gods who might or might not answer. He believed he had secured eternity. He believed he had shaped the world permanently. He believed his legacy unbreakable. Below him, the sea continued its endless rhythm against the cliffs of Valvik. Empires rise, empires fracture. Will he ride? Will he command? Will he survive? Across Calradia, the news spread. The Nords had won, but they were wounded, and every kingdom heard the same message. The wolf of the north was bleeding. In the Western Empire, armies gathered. In the Khuzait steppes, riders prepared for revenge. And in the deserts of the Aserai, fleets were being built. Even within the Nord kingdom, Jarls began to question their young king. Vanra stood alone on the cliffs of Valvik. The sea roared below. The wind howled across the northern waters. He touched the scar where his eye once was, and whispered a promise to the old gods, because the next war would decide the fate of the Narling dynasty. And that is a saga for the next episode. Thank you for watching and stay safe.